Hi, my name is Kate Braun, or Caitlin Braun, and this is my presentation for philosophy in practice. I chose to work alone in a group, or not really a group, I guess. And then this is the topic I selected, the effects of online learning. So just to introduce you to the topic a little bit, there are many changes that have been made in respect to shifting curriculum and pedagogy into an online setting. There are benefits as well as inevitable struggles that may impede a child's learning, as well as an educator's abilities to successfully deliver concepts, ideas, strategies, etc. According to the Ministry of Education's How Does Learning Happen document, learning is organized around four foundational conditions that are important for children to grow and flourish, which are belonging, well-being, engagement, and expression. So translating these fundamentals into an online setting has proven to be difficult across a variety of aspects, especially in a way that benefits young children as thoroughly as in-person learning would. So to summarize and analyze this a little bit further, I think good communication between parents and educators is really key in finding balance, especially in an online classroom setting. As Maria Gayatri states in her article titled The Implementation of Early Childhood Education in the Time of COVID-19 Pandemic, a Systematic Review, that because of the group effort that it takes to provide a young child with a positive online learning experience, it is important to have good communication between parents and teachers to support early childhood online learning during the outbreak. For years, most, if not all, curriculum and pedagogical experience was based on a hands-on and in-person setting, where educators can be actually physically present to support the children that they work with. The CECE, Code of Ethics and Standards of Practice concept of standard number 3, health, safety, and well-being in the learning environment is, in my opinion, especially difficult to translate into an online learning setting in regard to creating an environment that is enriching as well as aesthetically pleasing. Kind of hard to do online. So there are pros and cons with most topics surrounding childhood learning and education and what's best for the child. But I think that online learning is an especially controversial one, especially in like, how do we make it work and can it work? I think there are pros as well, though, not just negative aspects. Some of the positive aspects that I found were digital technology can help young children grasp the complexity of their social environments, adapt to new social experiences, and empower children to learn the leadership skills. Digital tools such as touchscreen tablets are believed to promote early children to develop their literacy skills. So having an increased variety and an increased focus on the variety of otherwise kind of forgotten or pushed back communication methods are now being brought to light again for both in-class and online documentation. So in my previous placement, I had the opportunity to look at one of the pedagogical documentations that they were using in order to communicate between educators and parents, which was Seesaw. It was an app that you could take pictures inside the classroom, write text to small groups of parents, all of the parents one-on-one with parents, and it was really interesting to see how that worked in an online way. There are negative impacts as well. So some of the negative impacts that I found was that there can be a disconnect between children and their educators, especially in a relationship sense. Knowledgeable educators get involved in play with children to support development, thinking, challenging learning, and extending learning. It'll be more difficult to find engaging ways to implement the key learning concepts through a screen, as well as children and families might be struggling with keeping a consistent schedule due to working families, access to technologies, etc. I find that these limitations are more evident for young children or school-age children who might not have online access or have had limited experience with online learning tools, such as computers. Some children are so young that they aren't really exposed to how to operate a Zoom meeting or, how to sit in front of a computer and stay engaged in a way that makes sense to them. So that can be difficult. So in professional practice, to apply these concepts into practice further, we must consider the way that online learning impacts the minds of the children and build constructivist approaches to scaffold learning, even through a screen. So Christine Stephen and Lydia Plowman speak on the importance of keeping constructivism in mind in their article titled Enhancing Learning with ICT in Preschool. They say that in most settings, in that study, practitioners were responsible for supervising play at the computer along with other activities. They place considerable value on a child-centered approach, with adults offering a nurturing and developmentally supportive environment and avoiding didactic or what they interpret as teacherly interactions. Stephen and Plowman go on to acknowledge the unusualness of computer-based learning. So while practitioners would help to overcome an operational problem if it was drawn to their attention, offer positive feedback, sort of difficulties with turn taking and adjust the level of task difficulties, sitting alongside the children and actively helping them interact with the computer was unusual. So to take these considerations into practice, Jin-Young Kim suggests that there are 3 important questions to follow in his article, Learning and Teaching Online During COVID-19, the Experiences of a Student Teacher in an Early Childhood Education Practitioner. So his questions are, what should be done at different phases of an online student teaching course for early childhood students, teachers to teach children online? What kinds of support are needed for online student teaching in an early childhood education? And what are the limitations and possibilities for an online student teaching in practitioners for early childhood education? By reflecting on the differences between online and in-person learning and acknowledging that new strategies must be developed in order to create a successful learning environment, online learning environment, there is a higher chance that this form of learning will succeed. So just constantly asking yourself those questions of what can I do better? What does this mean for future children and educators? There's a lot to think about for both yourself as a professional and how you're going to go about adjusting the way that you've maybe always done things or the way you think you're about to be doing things if you're a student that's just about to enter the field, and how can you adapt and shift your mentality in a way that can always be child-centered but also supports yourself, supports the parents, the community, and really allows yourself to build up even in an online setting. So to make online learning a success, we must always keep children's development in mind. I think that's always going to be the number one most important thing. Being proactive in monitoring how the difficulties of an online learning environment might impact a child. Really slowing down and taking the time to, maybe see that one child is struggling maybe a little more with something that's going on online, or maybe they're having a little more difficulty with technology. They're not really getting the concepts of numeracy, literacy, anything. It's not being translated as easily into a online platform as they would maybe if you were one-on-one with them in a classroom. Being open and willing to adapt to the ever-changing technological world. I think that's going to be the number one most important thing to keep in mind as an educator. Adaptability, I think, is really, really important here in terms of we're in kind of a little bit of an uncertain time in terms of online aspects and COVID, and how are we going to make it work? And how can I keep an open mentality? I'm not a very technological person, but I've had to keep an open mentality, even as a student myself, to find ways that work for me to allow my own learning to succeed and, continuous professional learning in the future. How can that be done? And how can I adapt to making that work in every avenue, not just in person, online? That goes hand in hand with maintaining a positive attitude, not being afraid to reach out in forms of professional documentation, always educating yourself, other educators within the classroom, supervisors, or parents of the children to find new ways of doing things. Communication is really important. Asking parents, hey, this child maybe is struggling a little bit. What do you do at home to support them in this aspect? Or how can I take on that role in the classroom to mirror what you're doing at home? So in conclusion, I think it is not only important to recognize both the positives and negatives that online learning presents, but also work with what we are given in terms of resources and support to support our roles as educators the best we can, while still maintaining the key values that an effective educator holds. Early years programs play an important role in supporting children's learning, development, health, and well-being. Evidence from diverse fields of study tell us that children grow in programs where adults are caring and responsive. Online learning can be another avenue ECEs explore to continue their own professional learning in the field. And by developing our own knowledge surrounding the most effective ways to support an early learning in an online setting, we as educators can be confident in our abilities to maintain strong relationships with both children and their families. And other educators and the community and supervisors. All of that ties into how we can make it a positive thing. So thank you for listening to my presentation. I think it is a very relevant and interesting topic to look into. There's definitely a lot of pros and a lot of cons that go with online learning. And I was glad that I was able to research it and find out more. So thank you.